The silence at the dinner table was always the loudest when it came to me. My wife, Sarah, bless her heart, would try to steer the conversation, but her family, the formidable Vanderbilts, had a laser focus on my unemployment. I'm Mark, 29, and for the past year, I'd been, in their eyes, nothing more than a burden. A freeloader, as Sarah's older brother, Richard, once so eloquently put it. My unemployment wasn't by choice. I'd been laid off from a promising tech startup when it unexpectedly folded. For months, I'd sent out resumes, networked, and pounded the pavement. The job market was brutal, and every rejection chipped away at my confidence. Sarah, ever the rock, was incredibly supportive. She worked as a nurse, and her income, while comfortable for us, was a far cry from the Vanderbilt family's generational wealth. Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt, Sarah's parents, were titans of industry, their lives a meticulously curated tableau of luxury and success. They lived in a sprawling estate, drove high-end cars, and vacationed in exotic locales. And I, their daughter's husband, was the glaring imperfection in their otherwise flawless picture. Every Sunday dinner was a gauntlet. So Mark, Mrs. Vanderbilt would begin, her voice dripping with thinly veiled concern. Any prospects on the horizon? Sarah works so hard, it's a shame she has to carry the load. Her eyes would dart to Sarah, as if commending her martyrdom. Mr. Vanderbilt would chime in with a stern look. A man needs purpose, Mark. A respectable career. What exactly are you doing with your time? Richard, always the most cutting, would lean back in his chair, a smug smirk plastered on his face. Still honing your skills on the couch, Mark? My company's always looking for delivery drivers, if things get really dire. He'd chuckle, and a few of the cousins would nervously join him, while Sarah's grip on my arm would tighten under the table. Sarah was my fierce protector. She'd always say, Mark is incredibly talented, and he's working on some amazing things. It's just a matter of time. But even her valiant efforts couldn't deflect the constant barrage of judgment and thinly veiled contempt. They'd question our financial choices, our plans for children, even where we spent holidays. Everything was filtered through the lens of my unemployment. It wasn't just about my lack of a job, it was about their perception of my worth, or lack thereof. They saw me as lazy, unmotivated, and fundamentally unworthy of their daughter. I tried to ignore it. For Sarah, I smiled through the veiled insults and endured the condescending advice. But inside, a quiet rage simmered. I loved Sarah more than anything, and their constant undermining of me felt like an attack on our love, our partnership, and her judgment. It lit a fire in me, a burning desire to not just get a job, but to prove them fundamentally, undeniably wrong. The turning point wasn't a sudden explosion of anger, but a slow, deliberate shift in my mindset. One evening, after a particularly brutal Sunday dinner where Richard had joked about me needing an allowance, I saw the pain in Sarah's eyes. It wasn't just my humiliation, it was her heartache from seeing me so diminished. That night, lying awake, I made a silent vow. I wouldn't just get a job, I'd build something. Something that would stand on its own, something undeniable, something that would make them truly regret every dismissive word. My revenge wouldn't be about tearing them down, it would be about building myself up. I stopped sending out generic resumes. Instead, I started looking inwards. What was I good at? What did I genuinely enjoy? My background was in software development, but my passion had always been problem solving, finding innovative solutions to everyday frustrations. I'd tinkered with app ideas for years, just for fun. Now it was time to get serious. I dedicated every waking hour to learning. I devoured online courses on coding, product development, and user experience design. I lived and breathed startups, reading every success story, analyzing every failure. My small home office became my war room. Sarah, seeing my renewed purpose, supported me unconditionally, bringing me coffee, proofreading my notes, and cheering me on. We cut back on non-essentials, reinvesting every spare dollar into my nascent venture. My idea was simple but impactful, a mobile app designed to streamline volunteer coordination for local charities. It addressed a real need, and I believed in its potential. I worked relentlessly, often coding late into the night, fueled by caffeine and the memory of Richard's smirk. There were countless setbacks, bugs, and moments of doubt, but every time I felt like giving up, I pictured the Vanderbilts' condescending faces, and that picture fueled me forward. After months of grueling work, The app, Community Connect, was ready for beta testing. I offered it to a few local charities, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. They loved its intuitive interface, its efficiency, and how it saved them countless hours. This wasn't just a passion project anymore, it was a viable product. I launched Community Connect with a shoestring marketing budget, relying heavily on word of mouth and social media. The app slowly gained traction. Local news outlets picked up the story, highlighting its positive impact on the community. Users started signing up, then more users, then even more. Before I knew it, Community Connect was generating revenue through premium features and partnerships. My transformation wasn't just professional, it was personal. The long hours at the computer transformed into focused work sessions. I started running again, clearing my head and strengthening my body. The slump of unemployment was replaced by the energy of purpose. I was happier, more confident, and genuinely fulfilled. Our small apartment, once a symbol of my struggles to the Vanderbilts, now felt like a bustling hub of innovation. The Vanderbilts, of course, were oblivious for a while. I didn't announce my progress at Sunday dinners. I just kept working. The money from Community Connect allowed us to slowly upgrade our lives. A new, more reliable car, a few strategic investments, and finally, a deposit on a charming, detached house in a lovely neighborhood. Not a mansion, but a home that was undeniably ours, built from my own efforts. The moment of their regret came, ironically, at their annual holiday gala. Sarah and I arrived, not in their eyes as the struggling couple, but as a confident, content pair. I wore a well-fitting, understated suit, and Sarah was radiant beside me. Throughout the evening, I noticed the subtle shifts. Richard, usually quick with a sarcastic jab, just stared. Mrs. Vanderbilt's saccharine smiles seemed to falter, replaced by a flicker of confusion. Then Mr. Vanderbilt approached, holding a glass of champagne. "Mark," he said, his voice surprisingly subdued, "I've been hearing things about this Community Connect app. My Rotary Club was discussing it. Apparently, it's quite successful." I met his gaze, a calm, almost serene smile on my face. "Yes, sir. It's been doing very well. We're expanding into new cities next quarter." Suddenly, Richard appeared, clearly having overheard. His smugness was gone, replaced by an almost bewildered curiosity. "Community Connect? That's your app? I thought that was some big tech startup." "It started as a small one," I replied, "built from scratch." Later in the evening, a local philanthropic giant, a friend of the Vanderbilts, approached me. "Mark, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I've been so impressed with Community Connect. My foundation wants to explore a major partnership. Could we schedule a meeting next week?" The Vanderbilts were watching. Their eyes, once so dismissive, were now filled with a mix of surprise, dawning realization, and perhaps a hint of something akin to admiration. Their whispers now carried a different tone, a mix of awe and a quiet, almost imperceptible sense of regret. They saw the man who had been called a loser not just with a job, but as the founder of a successful, impactful venture. As we prepared to leave, Mrs. Vanderbilt pulled me aside. Her perfectly manicured hand reached out, gently touching my arm. "Mark," she said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it, I apologize. We truly misjudged you. You've accomplished something remarkable. Sarah always knew your potential." I just nodded, a genuine, easy smile on my face. "Thank you, Mrs. Vanderbilt. It means a lot to hear you say that." I didn't need to rub it in. Their faces, their words, the palpable shift in their demeanor. That was my vindication. Their regret wasn't just about my newfound financial success. It was about their fundamental misjudgment of my character, my drive, and my unwavering spirit. It was about realizing that potential isn't always measured by a steady paycheck, but by passion, perseverance, and the courage to build something from nothing. As Sarah and I drove home, her hand rested on my thigh, a comfortable silence between us. "You know," she whispered, her voice full of love, "they finally saw what I always knew." I intertwined our fingers, and it only took a little app to show them. We laughed, a quiet, shared moment of triumph. They called me a lazy loser, an unemployed burden. They doubted me, dismissed me, and tried to define me by my circumstances. But what I did next? I built an enterprise, not just of wealth, but of purpose and undeniable impact. And in doing so, I didn't just get a job. I became the man I was always meant to be. And that, more than any apology or recognition, was the sweetest form of revenge imaginable.